That's the man-goose. The world is on fire. Crisis after crisis. Mankind at its worst. The story lies behind. The man-goose flies on by. Hell yeah.
Welcome back to January, everyone. It's that time of the year, infamous for fluctuating view counts and very low ad revenue. At least, assuming you're someone who relies on ad revenue. I make almost nothing. That rant video is still the sole reason I've made any amount of ad money on YouTube. Regardless, I'm sort of using this as an excuse to talk about smaller games that have piqued my interest lately. This is another one of those games, an indie game with a lot of potential that I haven't seen anyone mention yet, so I figured I might as well do it. We're taking a dive into a black and white colored world of manga and pixel art based on mech battles and an alternate timeline where the Soviet Union didn't collapse, apparently. This is Wolfstride.
Say, wizard, what
There's someone here looking for you.
Hi, Shadow. Remember me?
Huh?
Got your tongue, Catman.
Huh? What are you doing here?
You're pretty hard to find, you know that? It's been 7 years.
What the hell, Catman?
Is that a micro moonwalk?
As I said in the intro, Wolfstride is a game that moves between pixel art and manga art. The environments you regularly visit and the characters inhabiting them are all in a fairly minimal-looking pixel art style, but when you see the locations on your exploration map, see the mechs, or interact with the characters, it shows them in a much more detailed manga art style. And I am specifying manga there instead of anime, since this game intentionally uses black and white for its color scheme, the same way manga is. And the actual art is made accordingly, using the same methods of line work, shading, and the color gradients to allow the characters to all stand out despite all having the same color scheme. Honestly, I like it and respect it a good deal. If there's one thing I could name to say this game got completely right, it's the art. The music is pretty catchy too, which is useful for things like the song that plays when you're exploring, since you'll be hearing it a lot for reasons which I will get into later. And much like the last game I reviewed, the voice acting is very good. Some voices can come off as a little too quiet, but all in all, they nail it. My only real problem there isn't with the voices themselves, but with the writing. And on that note...
I think I'm Pete. I've been knocked out, beat down, black and blue.
Hold on, Marlene. No one's gonna hurt you now. You're part of the family.
The Pete is Marlene. You Pete, 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 Pete.
Is it malfunctioning?
Nah, I think it's got a language moderator. It's just calling him names.
Oi, Perro. Beep. Did you watch Terminator? Remember how that goes?
You better treat me well.
The story of Wolfstride is fairly straightforward. You play as Shade, a Yakuza who got his hands on an old one-of-a-kind mech from an old friend from his past. Shade teams up with a dog man named Duke and an overly excited amateur mech pilot named Knife Leopard to soup this old mech up and use it to climb the rankings of a world-renowned mech fighting tournament to win it big and get rich. That's the main plot, at least. The actual appeal of the story is supposed to be on the characters involved. Everyone has their troubled histories, regretful decisions, and close-kept secrets that you will or can try to learn about as you play, including from Shade himself. It can get really heartfelt and really sad sometimes. The writing can truly be something great here, but there's a big issue: the humor. The humor feels like someone desperately trying to emulate old-school anime like Cowboy Bebop, but without understanding what made it actually work. In Bebop, the humor comes from the fact that the writing as a whole feels real. Sure, the characters are on spaceships, alien worlds, and even space casinos, but the characters still act mostly like normal people, and this translates into the humor being typically fairly mundane or relatable, even when it's more out there. In Wolfstride, the humor feels like the writers are obsessed with using swear words to feel mature. Almost every character swears multiple times in almost every single sentence, and after a while, it gets mind-numbingly stupid. Just because you can manage to slip swear words into every sentence doesn't make it funny, it just gets annoying, especially for a story that has genuinely amazing moments of character writing. On top of that, the tone just feels out there sometimes. Sometimes it seems like it's trying to tell a realistic story of troubled people running from their past, akin to Cowboy Bebop. Other times it's just one long mecha tournament arc, and then along the way you encounter things like a pineapple deity threatening to do something to you if you don't give people pineapples. I really don't understand some of these tonal choices, and unfortunately, this extends into the gameplay.
So what is next for us?
This one is a real P. The mech goes by the name Junker. The pilot is known as Hart, and seems like she used to work as a full-time mechanic before joining the ranks. Junker is a close combat specialist, so we should make the best use of our P range. It also relies on defense-boosting techniques. She might not look like much, but she's got sturdy armor. Now, don't let your guard down, donkey!
So, you've probably noticed by now that despite all the times I've mentioned mechs, I haven't shown you much in the way of actual mech gameplay. Well, now I explain why. The game takes forever to actually get to the mech fights. The vast majority of my footage is the story and No More Heroes style side jobs used to raise extra cash, and that's because the fights are all tournament fights, again akin to No More Heroes, which means you have to wait for the scheduled part in the story to do so. It also doesn't help that the first few fights are actually scripted losses that you aren't necessarily told are scripted losses, meaning you'll never know when a loss is scripted until you've lost. It took me 5 hours of gameplay to reach the second real fight in the game, and it's at that same mark that I've only just now unlocked the mode where you can practice mech fights as much as you want without actually damaging your mech in a real story fight. It's not like the fight gameplay is bad either, it's a good turn-based strategy game. You move forwards and backwards on a tile system and try to outplay or outmaneuver your opponent by learning their moveset and trying to tweak yours to counter it, or just try to adapt on the fly. It's nice, it's fun, but it's super limited for the first number of hours because, again, I only unlocked the ability to change my mech's absolutely garbage parts 5 hours in. 5 hours in is not when you should be introducing fundamental game mechanics or practice mode. I should have had access to these hours ago. It would have kept my interest and reminded me there's an actual mech fighting game here, rather than just a watered-down Persona, which is what the majority of this feels like. You play the game on a day-by-day basis. You run around, complete your daily tasks, advance some story, and then do relationship stuff with the characters, like giving pineapples. It all feels a lot like the exploration system and social system of Persona, where you're going back and forth between the same places and people day by day and advancing personal stories as well as the main story with bouts of gameplay in between it all. The problem is, there's not much keeping me engaged during these sections. Most characters who aren't related to a task have nothing new to say, and the pineapple thing only has consequences after you've given multiples to them. So a lot of the early hours feel like you just being dragged along waiting for something interesting to happen, like, you know, an actual mech fight in your mech fighting game.
I didn't see that coming. I'm kinda surprised.
Piece of crap! Are you trying to poison me, Catman?
Wow, that's amazing, dude.
I wanted a veggie one.
Well, you got what you wanted. Now, let's get back to business.
And that's the main problem this game seems to have, really. It has so much potential. The art is great, the music is catchy, the voice acting is amazing, but the pacing is so bad, it's difficult to want to push forward trying to finally get past the drip feed of content and get into actual, consistent gameplay, but you keep getting held back by the story. The way I'd simply summarize it is, there's a good game here, there really is, but it's being held hostage by the writers. This has been TheRatMan, and I will see you all later. And lastly, a special thank you shout out to my Patreon with a $5 a month pledge is Scarlet. Thank you for the $5.